Today we're going to make this little bag. It's perfect for festivals or bumming around town, grocery shopping, Christmas shopping, times when you don't really need to haul a big purse but you do need the essentials. This is going to fit your large cell phone plus more. It has a nice deep 6-inch pocket right here. You can either put your cell phone in there or you can put your credit cards or your headphones, your sunglasses. It also has a nice big zipper pocket which is more secure, and it will fit even the biggest phone. This is a Samsung Galaxy S10, which is one of the biggest phones, and you can see there's still room for more. There's also room for my headphones if I want to pop them in there and then close it up a little bit. So you could either make the strap. I have directions with the pattern, not here on the video, but I do have directions to make the strap, as well as making it adjustable. Or you can buy one. I've seen them reasonably priced at Amazon and on Etsy, and they have a big variety of colors. So gather your supplies together and let's get started. To make this bag, you're going to need the following supplies. For your first hooping, you're going to need exterior bag fabric, 7 by 11 inches, and 100% cotton batting, 7 by 11 inches. For your second hooping, you're going to need exterior bag fabric, 7 by 9 inches, medium weight fusible interfacing, 7 by 9 inches, and lining fabric, 7 by 9 inches. For your third hooping, you're going to need exterior bag fabric, 7 by 9 inches, exterior bag fabric 7 by 3 inches, lining fabric 7 by 11 inches, lining fabric 7 by 9 inches, lining fabric 7 by 3 inches, and 100% cotton batting 6 by 8 inches and 6 by 2 inches. You're also going to need an embroidery machine with a 6 by 10 inch hoop, cutaway stabilizer enough to hoop 3 times, 9-inch or larger nylon zipper, not metal, 2 4-inch pieces of 1/2 inch wide ribbon to match bag, 2 1/2 inch D-rings, 2 1/2 inch swivel hooks. Set of snaps, embroidery thread to match exterior fabric, and size 11 embroidery needle, Scotch tape or painter's tape. And then there's your general sewing and embroidery supplies such as scissors, pins, ruler, tissue paper, or tearaway stabilizer. And I love to use the basting spray. It does very well for these kind of projects. Okay, now I have my placement stitch for my batting. So now I take my basting spray, a couple quick little shots there, and I'm going to take my 7 by 11 inch piece of fabric. Okay, so I'm going to place my fabric on top of the batting and then smooth it in place. And that basting spray will hold everything really nice. Okay, now I'm going to go take it to the machine and I'm going to stitch my next stitching, which is going to be my basting stitch. Okay, this is creating my basting stitch. Okay, my third and final stitching for this hooping is going to be the stippling. That's going to create the quilted look that's going to show up on the back side of the bag. So we'll just go ahead and get that started. Okay, the stippling stitch is on there. And now your first hooping is complete, so you can remove this from the hoop. And now you can cut away all that excess stabilizer. Actually, I should probably be using embroidery scissors for this. That way I don't accidentally cut through anything that I don't want to. Okay, now that that's all cut away, we are just going to set this to the side and we'll go on with our next hooping. I have my machine loaded with my second hooping, which is going to create the pocket, and I also have my medium weight cutaway stabilizer in my hoop. So now I'm just going to stitch out the first stitching, and that is going to just create a placement line for me to put my pocket. Okay, you can see that I now have my placement line for my pocket. Before I go to the machine for stitching, I'm going to have to take my 7 by 9 inch exterior fabric, and I'm going to take my 7 by 9 inch piece of interfacing fusible, and I'm going to fuse this to the back side of this fabric. Now be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions for whatever fusible interfacing that you will be using. Okay, now that I have fused the interfacing to the back side of my fabric piece, I'm going to place it on here so that the upper edge is about a 1/4 inch or so above that stitching line right there. I did give it a little quick shot of my heat and bond to keep it in place while I stitch. Now I'm going to take that to the machine, and what I'm going to do is stitch my next step, which is going to be the stippling. That's going to create the design on the front of the pocket. Okay, my stippling stitch is complete. I probably should have mentioned before that before it does the stippling stitch, it's going to create the basting stitch as well. So both of those are complete now. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my 7 by 9 inch piece of lining fabric, and I'm going to place it right side down right over this piece right here. And I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to stitch a line right here that's going to connect these two pieces, and that's going to create our mock binding. All the stitching for the second hooping is complete now. See how that stitched this to this? Okay, so now we're going to remove this project from the hoop. Okay, now what we're going to do is cut all this excess stabilizer away. Now that we have removed all that excess stabilizer, what we're going to do now is cut about 1/2 inch above this line here. So I'm just going to take my rotary cutter. If you don't have a rotary cutter, that's okay. You can always use scissors and a tape measure. But I happen to have 1,000 rotary cutters around here. So I'm going to cut that. About 1/2 inch. Okay. Now, what you're going to do next is go to the iron, and what you're going to do is you're going to pull this up, and you're going to press right along there. And then you're going to fold this back, and you're going to press that. Okay? And then see how that created like a little binding? But you didn't have to make a binding. Okay, it's all nice and pressed, nice and flat back there. So now we're going to put this to the side along with our backing, and we're going to go on to our third and final hooping. I have the file for the third hooping loaded into my machine. That's going to be our bag assembly. I'm going to take this to the machine, which of course is again hooped with medium weight cutaway stabilizer, and I'm going to stitch out my first stitching. That's just going to be the placement stitch for the zipper and the entire project. Now this is going to be my placement stitch for the entire project, and then this is going to be the placement stitch for the zipper. So I'm going to place my zipper right in between those lines, and I'm going to tape it in place. And you probably notice I have a much longer than 9-inch zipper. That's only because I don't have 9-inch zippers. I always buy them in a size 14. That way I could make anything I want. Because this zipper is going to be cut down anyway, so it really doesn't matter. You could definitely use a bigger zipper. Okay, now I'm going to take my 7 by 9-inch exterior bag fabric, and I'm going to place it, go on like this. Like this. It's going to line up with the bottom edge of the zipper. Okay. I'm going to tape it in place. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line it up against this bottom row of stitching. Okay, because this is going to be the lining for the inside of the bag. Okay, now I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to do my next stitching, which is going to stitch the zipper, the exterior fabric, and the lining together. Okay, when you have this in the machine, it is critical that the bottom fabric, which is your lining fabric, is up and out of the way. You know, let me see if I can move my camera in a different area. Okay, this is going to be kind of a weird angle, but I think it's important for you to see. This is my exterior bag fabric, which is on the top of the hoop. Okay, the lining fabric is under the hoop, and you want to make sure that this lining fabric stays up and out of the way of your stitching line. Okay, so now we'll just make sure everything's nice and where it's supposed to be, and we'll stitch this down. See how you see no fabric at all down there? It should all be up and out of the way. Okay, my lower bag portions are now stitched to the zipper. So I'm going to remove my tape because I don't want to stitch through it. Okay, my lower bag fabrics are now stitched to the zipper. Now I'm going to take my 6 by 8-inch batting piece, and I'm going to line it up against the stitching line just like you do on my other bags. Okay, then I'm going to pull this top portion down over the batting, and I am going to pin it in place. Important to keep your pins far, far, far away from your stitching line. And we'll give it another on each side here. Okay, now I'm going to take this back to the machine, and I'm going to now stitch out my next stitch, which is going to be a basting stitch. It's just going to tack all this down in place. You're also going to want to remember when you're at the machine, just like you did before, you don't want to stitch through this. So you are going to keep this up and out of the way of your stitching line. Okay? You're only going to stitch through the stabilizer, the batting, and your top fabric here. So please make sure this does not get in the way of your stitching. After the basting stitch is complete, you don't even need to take it out of the machine. All you do is simply hit the start button again and you can stitch your stippling, as long as your machine is threaded with the color of thread that you want your stippling to be. For this project, my thread has been the same color throughout, so it makes it nice and easy. Once the stippling is completed, you could remove the hoop from the machine. Okay, now that my stippling stitch is complete, and again notice how my backing fabric is loose, not caught in the stitches. Now I'm going to remove my pins. And I'm also going to remove this tape up here. Now what I'm going to do is pull this fabric down. Okay, so this fabric is pulled down. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a little taping. Yeah, keep it in place. Okay, now that fabric is down, this is stitched down, so now what we're going to do is create our top portion of the bag, and we're going to do it just like we did the other one. So I think I'm going to do it like that. Okay, so I'm going to place this right side down. This is my 7 by 3 inch piece of fabric, of exterior fabric I should say. Now I'm going to pin it in place here. Now I'm going to flip my bag over, and I'm going to repeat that with the 7 by 3 inch piece of lining fabric. This time I'm going to place it along that line right there. I'm going to stitch it, I'm going to tape it in place. Okay, there. Okay, now it's all nice and taped down. So very carefully, I'm going to take it to the machine, but this time when I go to the machine, I want to make sure everything is nice and flat down here, okay? Because I'm just going to stitch this row of stitching right up there that's going to secure these fabrics to the zipper. I have now stitched the 2 top pieces to the zipper, front and the back. Stitch to the zipper. So now I'm going to remove the tape, because we don't want to stitch through it, and this tape. And now I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the lower half. I'm going to take my little 2 by 6 inch piece of batting, and I'm going to place it on the stitching line, and then I'm going to pull this up and over. Now for this part, this you want to keep out of the way. This is going to be underneath here, so it's not on your stitching line up above, okay? So now I'm just going to pin that in place. Okay, and I'm going to take this back to the machine, and I'm going to stitch my decorative stitching up and through here, which is just the stippling stitch. Now remember, this needs to stay flat and down out of the way of the stitching. Okay, now we are reaching the final assembly of the bag. Notice how it did not go through the stitching lines there? Okay, so we're now going to remove these pins. Now this time we're preparing for assembling the bag. So this time we want this up. So you know what, I'm just gonna tack it up there with some tape just to kind of keep it secure for now. So what we're going to do is take your little ribbon pieces and your little 1/2 inch D-rings, and you're going to place your ribbon inside the D-rings like this, okay? And then you're going to place the D-rings so that they are just touching the zipper, okay? Just touching the zipper. Now, for this side of the D-ring, you want to make sure that the edge of the D-ring is at least 3/4 inches away from the stitching. Okay, the stitching on this bag ends right here. I don't know if you could see it, but it's stitching actually ends right there. So I'm just going to make sure, yep, I am 3/4 inches away. So now what I'm going to do is tape this down. I'll give you a closer look after I completed the other one. So that is taped down and out of the way. So now I'm going to repeat that step with this ribbon and this D-ring. Just fold it over. Okay, now let me give you a little close-up of this. I'm hoping you can see all that, the little stippling right here, that is where it ends. So I placed my rings 3/4 inch, okay, and 3/4 inch here as well. Okay, so that way you don't chance your D-rings getting in the line of your stitching. Now that that's done, keep my 3/4 inch, and I'm going to take my pocket piece. Remember the piece that we made back there, the pocket? We're going to take the pocket piece and we're going to place it right on the front of this bag, and we're going to measure 3/4 inch down. And when I say 3/4 inch down, I mean 3/4 inch down from the edge of the fabric where it meets the zipper. So we're going to put that there like that and just kind of keep it in place. Now we're going to open our zipper. That is also critical, because if you don't open your zipper, you're not going to be able to turn your bag right side out. So open your zipper about halfway. Okay? You want to make sure it's nice and straight because you don't want a crooked pocket. So now you're going to take your backing fabric. Now if you have a one-way fabric, which this is not, it goes all different ways, you're going to want to make sure that the upper edge is up here along this upper edge. Okay, so now what you're going to do is place this over this fabric. This is where it gets tricky. You just want to make sure that your stippling completely covers the stippling on this side. I made the stippling on the back fabric a little bit bigger than the rest of this, so it will be easier to match up. You just want to make sure you get all those little quilting stitches in there. Okay, so now I've got this where I want it. So now I'm going to pin. I'm just going to use just a few pins, not going to take very many, keeping them way out of the stitching area. And I'm going to stitch, I'm going to pin these together. And I'm going to show you what it looks like on the back, because that's kind of important. Oh, it's very important. Okay. So catch all, yep. You want to make sure you catch the backing fabric. I'm sorry, you want to make sure that you catch the lining fabric in your pins. Okay, so there is my front. My zipper is open. That's an important piece to remember. Here's what my back looks like. The lower fabric is pulled down, the upper fabric is pulled up, and what I like to do is take some tape and kind of just place it here, because I have had incidents where this will kind of like move over and shift. Then I got to restitch that area. I don't want to do that. So now I'm going to take this back to the machine, and I'm going to stitch all the way around the bag. Now the outer bag sections are stitched together. There's your back, which is actually your lining, and here is your front and your pocket and your zipper. So I'm going to just remove all these pins now, so I don't need them anymore. Then I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to take my 7 by 11 inch piece of lining fabric, and I'm just going to place it, making sure that I cover all the stitching. And I'm just going to tape it in place. When I do this part, I like to catch the tape on the frame, because then it's nice and secure, because sometimes it can move from the fabric, because I don't know why, but it does. So now I know I use a lot of tape. So now that is taped and secure, so I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to stitch out my final stitching. I also want to mention that for this project I used a black bobbin for the last 2 stitchings. That's because I just love this fabric so much, and I know this bag is going to get a whole lot of use, and I don't want any white threads to show through. So off to the machine for our final stitching. All our machine embroidery is complete. Now we can remove the project from the hoop. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is cut all around. So we'll just take our scissors, and what I like to do is cut like a little extra here. You'll see what I mean when I'm finished. And then just cut all the way around. About 1/8 to 1/4 inch away from the stitching line. This is a bit of a mess here. I was having a little bit of some needle shredding when I got to that part, and I found out what the problem was on my machine and I fixed it. Okay, so now what I do, notice how I've left this out a little more? Okay, I'm going to take this. This is your lining pieces right here. Okay, so I'm going to separate that from everything else. I'm going to cut straight across. Like that. Okay, and I could trim this away a little bit. I just like to have that little bit of extra when I go to stitch it closed. Or if you want to fuse it closed with some seam tape, it gives you a little more to work with. Now what I'm going to do is just turn this whole thing right side out. Okay, this is going to be your lining part. You're going to have to turn it twice. So as long as your scissors have a blunt end like this, you can go ahead and use them to push out those corners. Okay. Okay, now all my corners are pushed out. Well, let's work with this one a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is close this up. I like to stitch it closed because I just think it's a nicer finish. So I'll just put some pins in there. Then I'll get some matching thread and I will just whip stitch it closed. I have some blue thread in my needle here, and simply just going to stitch this closed. It's nice. Now that my lining is stitched closed, I'm going to need to remove this little piece of stabilizer right here. Got to be very careful because you don't want to go through your zipper. I have found the best way to do this is by using a seam ripper. You can put it in there, then that way you can see that you're not all the way through the zipper. Okay, so then I just take the seam ripper. See how I can see my seam ripper in there, so I know it's not going through the zipper. And I just cut it away. You could use scissors too. Just whatever you use, you just need to be really, really careful so you don't cut through. So I'm going to remove this. Okay, now I've opened my zipper the rest of the way, so I can now turn my bag right side out. I'll remove any tape that's in the way. Again, I could use my scissors because they've got the blunt end. Push out my corners. Okay, corners are pushed out. Now all we have left to do is put on our snap, give it a quick press, and then attach our strap. I'm going to be using cam snaps for my snap. You of course can use whatever kind of snap you want. Just be sure to follow the directions for the snaps that you are using when you're applying them. For my cam snaps, what I'm going to do is find my center point here. As you can see, my center point is going to be 2 1/4 inches. So I'm going to take my little, I don't know, my piercing thing I call it, and I'm going to put it at 2 1/4. Okay. Then I'm going to put it through to both the pocket and the bag. See how it's coming up through? Okay. That's where I'm going to place my snaps. So I'm going to place 1/2 of my snap here. And I'm going to use these little pliers that came with my snaps. Press really hard. Okay, so there's one. Okay, now I've got this little hole here, and I'm going to put the other half of the snap with the shiny side on the inside. And I got to find that little point. Here's where I put it. There, found the point. See how it's coming up here? Sometimes you got to just push that fabric down. I don't want to ruin my nails. Okay, so now I'm going to take the other half of the snap and put it there. Then I'm going to use my little pliers, make sure it's on there properly, and give it a pinch. There. Now, there, your bag is complete. All you got to do now is give it that quick press and then attach your straps. If you don't have a sewing machine or you don't want to make a strap, you can purchase one online. I saw a huge selection at Etsy and Amazon, very reasonably priced, or you could make one yourself. If you are new to In the Hoop by Sher, you might want to sign up for our weekly newsletter. There's a free embroidery design almost every weekend. If you want to make your own zipper bag, you will find the link to them and the link to the newsletter in the notes below this video. If you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, share, or comment. Thank you for watching. I hope this video has inspired you to create something special for yourself or someone else.